Hello everyone, I'm Ji-hye. Welcome to In the Newsroom, where we bring you the behind-the-scenes look on how we deliver the news to you. As always, we're going to kick off by giving you a rundown of some of the top stories that made headlines this week with our Hwang Seung-ha standing by. Hello, Seung-ha.
Hi, Ji-hye. The long-awaited G20 Summit was the biggest news this week, so I think that's where I'll begin this week's headlines. Wrapping up their two-day summit over in Mexico, G20 leaders have adopted a joint communique calling on the Eurozone to take specific steps to resolve the ongoing financial crisis. And it looks like more free trade agreements are on the way for Korea, as it has agreed to resume working-level FTA negotiations with Mexico before September and to reopen free trade talks with Canada within this year. And here in Korea, property sales tumbled 20% last month from the previous year, and the government is coming up with additional measures to boost the nation's sluggish housing market. A nationwide taxi strike took place this week as cab drivers demanding lower LPG prices and higher base fees rallied against the government to provide more support. In domestic politics, the main opposition Democratic United Party's Jae-in, who has long been seen as one of the leading candidates, has announced his presidential bid, while the ruling Saenuri Party remains mired in a dispute over how it should select its presidential nominee. Myanmar's opposition leader and democratic icon Aung San Suu Kyi has finally received her Nobel Peace Prize, 21 years after it was first awarded. Korea and the United States have agreed to move towards building a joint missile defense system designed specifically to counter any missile attacks from North Korea. The agreement coming during the 2+2 defense talks in Washington last week. Well, just by looking at the headlines, I can tell that it's been a busy week for us reporters. Well, that's it for me now. Take it away, Ji-hye.
Hello guys. Well, for the past several weeks we had our meetings outside and tried to enjoy the sunshine and the breeze, but I thought it'd be best to we do it here today because it's scorching hot weather we've been experiencing.
I know, it's so hot outside right now.
It is. I brought my fan.
Oh my gosh.
Ladybug.
Yes.
Well, yeah, just this week I think the temperature here in the capital rose to 33.5 degrees Celsius. That's like 12-year high for June in the country. So it's been just unreasonably hot, blistering hot.
And earlier this week there was a nationwide drill where citizens were encouraged to turn off unnecessary electricity and power, and there were, we all heard sirens and these loudspeaker announcements that we had to turn off lights and television and all these power outages.
Right. It shouldn't be just a one-day drill, but I think, we need to make a habit of saving electricity in our daily lives.
Because last year we had a huge power shortage of people just overusing electricity. So I think they're trying to prevent that from happening this year.
Good point. I think Seung-ha has something to say. It was your first APK, wasn't it, last week that you did something on energy consumption. Can you tell us more?
Yes, it's true. As you mentioned, I remember the blackout last September. I was in this country back then, so I realized that power shortages is one of the very serious problems in this country, so I chose this as my first APK topic. I was curious, why is this happening every year? Why is it repeating? And I found that the main cause is because of its cheap price. In Korea, the electricity is very cheap. It's only like half of other countries' electricity bills, so people are just using it very much because it's just cheap.
So how was your first report?
When I was doing the APK, I didn't face any challenges, but after it was on air, I heard many criticisms from my seniors. So I realized that next time, before going out for the APK, I should ask more to seniors and my colleagues.
What were the things that they were pointing out to you? What did you learn from this experience?
For example, I ended my package with an interview, which was very inappropriate. And also I did my stand-up at the very first. So there was some kind of problem in terms of the structure of my package. So next time I will ask beforehand.
Well, considering that it was your first attempt, I think the turnout to be good. Yeah.
And the more you do it, the better you'll become. So wasn't too bad for a
Take our
first
word for
attempt.
it.
And I was very impressed that she made all these preparations for her first APK. You know, it was not assigned. She wanted to do it herself, and you know, she prepared like who to talk to, and I thought the effort itself was great, like an A+. Although like we need to work on like how to structure our stories. You know, congratulations on
Congratulations.
your first APK. Yeah.
Well, let's start with you, Hanur, now that here you were in the field covering a very special joint drill
Right.
between Korea and the United States. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I was at Pocheon, which is northeast of Seoul, about 2 hours away. And I was at a joint live fire military drill between South Korea and US forces. It was the largest ever in terms of scale, in terms of the weapon systems that were displayed during the exercise. And it was indeed by far the most impressive live fire drill. Anything that you can imagine, from the Army to the Air Force, all these weapon systems were there. And
What was the occasion? Why
the
now?
occasion was to commemorate the 62nd anniversary of the Korean War, and they decided to hold this live fire drill. But I think this comes at a critical time where we're getting continued threats from North Korea, and you know, they're trying to prevent any type of future provocations, and they really want to display that the country and the alliance between the ROK and US troops are stronger than ever. So I think it was a really interesting day. It was very hot. It was 32 degrees.
Yeah. Wow, Hanur, you're out there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, speaking of defense cooperation between Korea and the U.S., wasn't it over the weekend that they had the 2+2 meeting between the Korea and the United States? What were some of the highlights, the outcome?
Well, the talk of the town is whether they want to extend the missile range, the missile capabilities that South Korea has. Currently, it's restricted. The South Korean side wants to extend it so it can actually shoot all the way over North Korea, but the Americans are trying a little bit, you know, hesitant to do that. So I think what came out of that meeting was just really strengthening missile cooperation between the two countries. But the missile range is still in the talks. No matter how many times reporters ask the Defense Ministry spokesperson, they always say, like, we've been talking about this for a while, and they're still, you know, in the middle of discussion. So nothing concrete has come out of that yet.
Another big thing that came out of the 2+2 joint defense talks between South Korea and the U.S. is that the two countries want to build up something called a comprehensive alliance system. So, you know, under that system, Korea is going to speed up the process of creating the so-called Korean air and missile defense system. And the KAMD will be a defense system where Korea would, you know, boost their defense capabilities with the help of the U.S., providing support for detection and missile identification and flight capabilities. So because the U.S. side is better with their, you know, intelligence and detection, they are going to provide that, and South Korean military is going to also do their best, you know, strengthening their capabilities. So with the best of the two sides, they're going to, you know, strengthen their military defense system and just be prepared for any nuclear threats from North Korea.
Oh, right, okay. Right. Okay, shifting gears now to party politics here in Korea. I mean, we have, less than 6 months to go until the presidential election in December. So what's the latest?
Well, last Sunday, the DUP lawmaker Moon Jae-in, who has the highest support from the party, he threw his hat into the ring and said, okay, I'm going to run for the president.
Moon Jae-in of the main opposition Democratic United Party on Sunday declared his presidential bid. He chose the Seodaemun Independence Park in Seoul, which celebrates Korea's fight for freedom from Japanese colonial rule, to announce his bid. Moon's pledges included pushing for growth with investments in the workforce and education, as well as promoting strong universal welfare policies. Besides Moon, DUP leader Son Hak-kyu announced his presidential bid last Thursday, and a number of DUP lawmakers are expected to join the race soon. Meanwhile, the ruling Saenuri Party remains divided over its presidential primary rules. On Sunday, Saenuri's floor leader Hwang met with presidential contenders, lawmaker Im Tae-hee and Gyeonggi Governor Kim Mun-soo, who opposed rules that they claim favor Park Geun-hye, the former party head who is seen as the party's presidential frontrunner. Lawmaker Im and Governor Kim wants a more open primary system than that currently allowed under the party rules. Im suggests a runoff election between the two leading candidates who would be selected by 500,000 registered party members. Governor Kim wants a truly open primary in which the general public, not just the party delegates, would choose a presidential nominee.
Park Geun-hye doesn't want to have a completely open primary, but she wants to just be the primary with the party delegates and members. And obviously the faction who's against that says, no, we don't want that. We want a completely open primary. So they're still mulling over, what to do with that. And meanwhile, they're saying that they will postpone the date of the primary to the end of London Olympics, because when the candidates should be campaigning overlaps with the games, the dates for the games. So.
Well, certainly something to look forward to. Moving on, we've earlier this week we celebrated World Refugee Day. I didn't know there was a special day commemorating the plight of the uprooted people. But can you tell us more? You've been covering the story.
Yes, actually, I was not aware of that World Refugee Day as well, and I was assigned to do a package on this in the morning. But then I wanted to get an interview from a refugee, so I called up the Center for Refugee Rights called Nansen.
Jae-in fled from Myanmar to Korea a decade ago and was recognized as a refugee in 2009. He has opened a restaurant in Seoul with the help of some local college students. As a recognized refugee in Korea, Jae-in is one of a few. Since Korea joined the convention relating to the status of refugees in 1992, some 4,500 people have applied for refugee status, but only 290 have been approved, which accounts for just 6.5% of all applicants.
In the Ministry of Justice, where the application process is handled, there are very few people compared to the number of applicants. The government is cautious about granting refugee status as there are not enough measures to cope with them.
She added that although the Refugee Act passed the National Assembly last year to provide support for the asylum seekers, systems that provide welfare and job opportunities to them are insufficient. Most Koreans are also unaware about the existence of refugees in their country.
How reluctant are we?
Actually, Korea joined the agreement in 1992, and since then, more than 4,000 asylum seekers applied to get the status, but only 6% of them. 6%. Yeah, very little, very little. And what the interviewer said is that Korean government is just reluctant because they have no measures, no policies to cope with them. So they're cautious about raising the number of refugees in this country. And also ordinary Koreans, they're not very aware of the situation. Even I myself, I didn't know about this before. And even our late President Kim Dae-jung, he was a refugee himself because at that time, human rights in Korea were not very protected very well. So if that kind of situation is happening in other countries, I think it's Korea's responsibility as a member of the international society to give them some protection.
Good point. The World Refugee Day certainly served as a great an opportunity for a lot of us to realize their endeavors and their courage. So thank you so much for that. Great. Thank you, ladies, again for your contribution and input this week. And hope you guys have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
My name is Ji-hye. I'm a news reporter in Arirang TV. I'm doing a report on the strike of taxi drivers with Hyun-bin, Kim, and also I'll be covering about the overall public transportation fees in Korea. My chief said he thinks it's more timely to do the report today, the in-depth today rather than tomorrow, because the demonstration is taking place today. So I'm doing the in-depth today. 스탠드업 현장감 잘 살려서 하고, 그리고 인터뷰 하나 더 하면 이제 택시 기사나, 그건 현빈 씨가 판단해서 시민이 더 필요하다고 생각하면 시민으로 하고 똑같아. 그 앞에만 좀 다르게 스탠드업. Hyun-bin will help me out doing the report on the rally, the demonstration of taxi drivers. So I hope it all goes well and it all works out.
Well, if it was out of the blue, I think I would have a lot of concerns. But I wrote a package about this yesterday about the taxi strike. So I'm adding a little bit on. So I don't think it's going to be that bad. But once I go out on the field, you never know what's going to happen, so you always have to be cautious. First one is with the president of this assembly, and the second one is with the cab driver. I'm going to put that in my article, and I'm going to have all this sketched out, so it will fit my article. 여기에서 이제 요구하는 사항들 전부 그게 현실화될 수 있는 가능성.
정부가 요금 현실화에 대해서는 하반기에 검토를 하겠다는 말씀을 들었어요.
그것만 있으면 됩니다. The interview is longer than what I expected, but there were some good answers, and we could edit it down to the certain length that I want.
Now I'm going to do an interview of a researcher in Samsung Economic Research Institute, and he would be explaining about how the hike in public transportation fee might influence the country's inflation rate.
너무 급하게 나와가지고 대중교통 요금 같은 것들이 인상이 됐을 때 한국 경제에 어떤 영향이 있을 수 있는지.
일반 시민들 입장에서 봤을 때는 택시 요금 올라가는 것이 별로 좋은 사인이 아니란 말이죠.
Mostly about inflation, how public transportation fees hike will impact Korea's price rate. So now I think I'm almost done with all the interviews I need today for my news in depth, and I hope Hyun-bin did a good job on his.
They're doing this strike for a purpose, so I don't think they're embarrassed to speak out on what they think because they're already out here. So I don't think it's going to be too hard to find an interview for my package. 안녕하세요. 아리랑 TV 김현빈 기자입니다. 파업에 참여하신 이유를 좀.
가스값 인하, 택시 요금 인상 조속히 해주기 바랍니다.
한 분 더.
이거는 생존권에 의한 거기 때문에 어떤 방법이든지 해야 됩니다.
I think I got all the answers I needed for my article, so we'll see. I think I did good. Well, I mean, as a reporter, first thing is you could be biased. Like, it's easy to take sides here. You could be taking sides with the cab people, cab drivers, or you could be taking sides with the government. But no matter what, as a reporter, you gotta maintain your neutrality when writing your article, so you won't offend anybody, and you just want to deliver the information.
So this strike is quite a big deal, but just how big of a deal is it?
Some experts, meanwhile, have emphasized the importance of seeking a compromise. Price hikes and public transportation fees would eventually result in extra burdens to ordinary citizens, while also pushing up inflation. So I just finished my news in-depth. I feel relieved because I finished most of the part of my news in-depth. I think Hyun-bin did a good job on doing the report on the rally of taxi drivers. I think my interviews went well, so I'm very happy with the results.
Now, throughout this week, we've been closely following up on the outcome of the G20 Summit in Mexico, largely dominated by the Eurozone debt crisis. Well, President Lee Myung-bak was in attendance, and of course, our presidential office correspondent Eoh Jin-joo, who's been traveling with the president, has been filing us quite a number of reports from the scene. Well, she, I believe, is now in Chile, the third leg of President Lee's 10-day trip around the Latin American countries. We're going to connect live to her now and talk to her. Hello, Jin-joo. It's 1 o'clock here in Korea. What time is it over there in Chile?
Hi, Ji-hye. I arrived in Santiago, Chile earlier today, and it is currently midnight here. So the time difference with Korea is about 13 hours. The weather is colder compared to the other countries I traveled to before, Mexico and Brazil. When I arrived here at about 6 p.m. local time, it was about 16 degrees Celsius.
Right, so let's talk more about G20 Summit in Mexico. How was the atmosphere there like compared to that of the Seoul G20 Summit back in 2010?
Well, to tell the truth, during this whole summit, as you also remember, we were all at an international press center set up at the COEX Convention Center where the summit was actually taking place. So it was easy for us to catch what kind of atmosphere it was during the sessions, but this time we had to stay in a separate press center set up at a hotel we were staying. So it was kind of difficult to actually get a hold of the atmosphere during this year's summit. But if you're talking about the results of this year's summit, many are saying that the leaders failed to put some tangible or specific solutions or coordinated action plans that can firmly counter the ongoing global financial crisis right now. So it seems that we have to wait until the EU summit, which is set to take place next week, to expect some specific and effective plans or measures to stop the Eurozone crisis from spreading further. But the G20 leaders did set a basic direction to solve this problem, such as urging European countries to immediately set up a European stability mechanism, a permanent rescue funding program which can replace the current temporary programs, and also agreeing to boost the IMF's lending capacity to $456 billion US.
Right, Jin-joo, so any progress made at the Rio Plus 20 summit? I hear that started out under the cloud of criticism.
Well, yes, but let me rather tell you about the progress Korea made in Brazil. The biggest event for Korea was the signing of an agreement to make the Global Green Growth Institute into an official international organization. What's notable is that this institute was first initiated by Korea and launched 2 years ago, putting forth green growth as a new strategy for sustainable growth. So after the ratification by participating countries at the climate change meeting, which is set to take place in Seoul this October, the GGGI will become an international organization, making it very meaningful for Korea.
Well, Jin-joo, keep up the good work. I'll see you back here in Seoul very soon. Take care. 괜찮아요? 뒤에 거, 오케이. 네. Very soon. Have a safe journey back. 죄송합니다.
Administrative city, it's gonna
다시 해야겠다. 잠깐만. 표를 안 썼어요. 뭐 해야 돼요?